Welcome to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast.
What is going on, boys and gentlemen, ladies and girls? Thank you so much for joining the Tyromper No Limit Podcast. This is episode number 43. We got a special guest on today, guys. I'm really excited to chat with her. This is a woman that is a former anxious corporate lawyer that transitioned to a now flourishing nurse practitioner. This is a woman that has literally the most based and practical and also funny takes I've ever seen on Twitter. She's an author. She's into health. She has a massive faith. She's also the owner of the world's cutest dog. I found this out by stalking you on Instagram. This is my friend Nisha. Welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for joining us today.
It's an honor, Ty.
Well, we've been buddies for a long time on Twitter, and you're somebody I just always love seeing on the timeline. I want to get people like you on here so I can get to know you a little bit more. You know, I know that probably a lot of people that follow me might follow you too, but maybe give the people like a little lowdown. If we had a 3 or 4 minute elevator speech, you know, can we kind of hear who you are, what you're about?
Well, I first found you and met you, I guess, Twitter meet in 2020. And I knew I liked you because you knew an old Newsboys song reference. So I was like, we have stuff in common. So I like following you because you're encouraging, you are living what you talk. Clearly, your family is the cutest family in the world. And you don't pretend to be perfect. I find a lot of Christians and people kind of project this perfection thing, or they don't talk about what they've been through or their flaws, and so people can't relate. So I guess my elevator speech is just, I want to be a similar, light to people, give them encouragement and good information. And that's kind of my modus operandi on Twitter.
So that's how you try and go about your Twitter lifestyle and your normal lifestyle. And yeah, for better or worse, for people like me, I think, it's easy to share a lot of, like, if I pretended to be perfect, everybody that knew me in my past would be like, oh man, like I knew this dude in his 20s. So
they would out you.
Right. And even today, I think the cool thing about like daily faith and kind of waking up, every day is a new day. I get attacked by the enemy the same as everybody does. I'm pretty open with sharing that stuff. And I appreciate how you come on and kind of talk about that stuff too. So can you tell us a little bit about, growing up and what your childhood was like and that kind of thing? We'll just start from there.
Yeah. I was born. No, I'm just kidding.
Pounds and 9 ounces.
Yes. No. So I was born in a small coal mining town, Big Stone Gap, Virginia.
Nice.
And I lived there until I was 9. And my dad is from India and my mom is from Virginia.
Oh, wow.
So I had a crazy culture clash kind of life growing up. And I had a lot of identity issues because I'm half Indian and I'm half Caucasian or whatever the white blend is from, England, Scotland, wherever. And it was rural Virginia. So, and then my dad was Hindu. And so we actually had idols in my house that I remember. And I remember being weirded out by them even back then. Like, it was just weird. So my parents got separated and they were separated about 9 months, and my mom started going back to church and I was with my mom.
And so how old were you then, Nisha?
Kindergarten.
Oh, okay. Wow. So really young.
Yeah. So, but I remember it well because we couch surfed and like stayed with friends and, it was pretty tumultuous.
Yeah.
But she started going back to church and somehow they got back together and he started going to church with her and he converted from Hinduism to Christianity.
That is something you don't hear every day. Wow. That's pretty wild. Yeah.
It's a miracle. And he is so mission minded and he is so hardcore now. It's crazy.
That seems similar in my parents kind of a little bit. Like my parents split apart and my dad actually had another woman back. This is 42 years ago or whatever now. But and yeah, my mom started really, she was already into church a little bit, but then got really all in, and my dad got all in later and got baptized and saved too. So that's pretty amazing. That's awesome. So then amazing. Did you guys come back together, live in that same home, and kind of it was peaceful after that?
No, because when people start going back to church, it's not like your life just becomes awesome and clean, and everything is just magical and flowers and berries.
Wait a second, you're telling me it's not like a Disney princess? I watch these Disney films with my daughter. This is what they sell us. So you're telling me that's not true, huh?
Yeah, no, not quite. So we lived back in Big Stone, and then we moved to Bristol, Virginia. And then we moved again to Kingsport, which is where I live now. And I moved away for college and, forever. And then I moved back. But yeah, no, my growing up was pretty tumultuous. However, my parents found an awesome church with a great youth group. And I don't think I would have survived if I hadn't have found cool people and learned that there are really cool people and loving people. And that's how I personally found Jesus, the Lord. Awesome. And so we went on mission trips, and I had the best youth pastor. He was amazing. And then I went off to school and started the whole adult thing.
Nice. Well, one thing I want to touch on there that I think is important you bring up, that, hey, a lot of people, when the day that I kind of went all in with Jesus too, it isn't like just all rainbows, right? Like, we're still called, we're going to have trials where the enemy is going to attack, sometimes even more than, right? And I think that's a misconception. Oh, you live a Christian life and you don't face any problems. That's not the deal, right?
No, life actually, I think there is something to that. It might be harder, but that's why the Lord sent the Holy Spirit down to help us. So we have help, but life isn't, rainbows and puppies.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, okay, so now you got this awesome youth pastor. What's your youth pastor's name? Let's give a shout out.
Mike Baker.
Hey, Mike Baker.
Hey, Mike. I'll send this to him.
Have you ever written Mike Baker a letter? You should just write him a letter someday and tell him how much you meant to you at that point. I've been doing that lately, is writing old people from the past letters.
That's a really good idea, because I've told him before, like on Facebook, because he doesn't live here anymore, and I'm not really in touch with him. But I don't know if he knows the true impact of, but I think he's impacted a lot of lives. He was a principal, and
yeah. That's cool. And that kind of shows how one on fire person, the ripple effect of that, even now in your life, how you're saying that was a big turning point. And I think that's reasons for us every day to try and live that on fire life. Maybe we're that one person that can pour into somebody who needs it at the right time, right?
Absolutely. That's a really good point. One person can do a whole lot of good.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now you're going off to college. Did you always want to be a lawyer, or what made you decide I'm going to be a corporate lawyer?
No. So I was 17 when I went to college, because
were you super smart?
Yeah, I skipped like 5 grades. No, my birthday fell on that, where I was the youngest person in my class, one of the youngest people.
Yeah.
So I graduated at 17, went to college at 17. So I was really young. I had no idea what I was doing. And I really didn't. I had no idea. I did know I wanted to go away to college and have an adult away experience and become independent. And I had a friend who went to this Christian college in Birmingham, Alabama. Now that was culture shock. So I went to Samford and I got a scholarship. So I went there, and I was an English major and pre-med. Like I said, I had no idea what I was doing, none whatsoever, but I liked to read, and biology was kind of fun. And my dad is a doctor. My brother was a doctor. All of the people on my dad's side are doctors. So that was kind of just
made sense.
Yeah, it kind of did. And that's ridiculous, but it did. But he kind of talked me out of going to med school, and I didn't feel ready anyway. I was 21 when I graduated, and I just didn't want that level of responsibility. And my brother at the time also said that insurance companies controlled the practice of medicine. Don't go to med school. And my dad's a very patriarchal Indian man. And he was like, it's bad for women. Don't go. So what's hilarious is I think law is probably the worst profession for anybody. But no, there may be some people that love it. There are some people that love it, but
yeah, it's a stressful environment though, right? Like one of my good buddies scored really high on the LSAT and then was going to go and join one of these law firms. And it was like the expectation that, you're making great money, but you are literally working 120 hour weeks. Like literally his colleagues and people were sleeping at the office, not going home a couple days at a time, literally working till 1, 2 a.m. and then back at it at 6 a.m. And that for 6 days in a row, like it's just, that's wild.
I had a friend who scheduled her pregnancy and birth around her work schedule, around merger season.
Yikes. That is wild. So, okay. So you get talked into being a lawyer. It sounds like this is, so then what's that like? Then you graduate law school and then you get hired by a big firm and you start working there?
Yeah, well, so I was, so I lived in Nashville before law school, went to DC for law school. I was dating someone in Nashville. So I moved back to get married. And I actually also had clerked in Nashville. So the lady that was my boss in Nashville hooked me up with who ended up being my boss at the firm. Like she helped me get the job.
Nice.
So I did work at a firm. It's the oldest firm in Nashville. It was way more men than women. It's very old school dudes, you know, golf, drinking. So I went to the firm and I had heard horror stories about billable hours and that kind of thing. And that is the worst part about the practice of law is how they charge. It makes no sense. It's they still charge by hours, but technically they also want you to think about it as value as well. So there's kind of an incentive to mark up your hours. And I struggled with that. I'm like, it's hours. If you called it something else. So I constantly was just working more than it reflected on my timesheets because you're supposed to bill 8 hours a day. Well, you got to go to the bathroom. You got to pee. You know, people stop by to chat.
I will say when I played online poker, I used to keep a pee bucket under my desk because I'd play these like 15-hour sessions. And so that is a thing. I'm not recommending that, but I'm saying back in my 20s, that was a thing, you know? So
Did you really?
I really did. Yeah. I mean, this is before kids and before like, it was just me in this apartment by myself, you know, playing online poker. So it wasn't like I had a couple dude roommates who weren't going to care. So.
Oh, Ty, that's hilarious. I mean, I have heard of people wearing Depends at the casino.
That's pretty wild. Yeah, it's pretty wild. just that next one's gonna be the one, you know, you gotta grind it out. So
oh my gosh.
You were in this kind of boys environment, it sounds like too, and there's probably some struggles in that, I assume, and then the billable hours on your conscience a little bit, and so that work seems a little tumultuous. And are you married at this time?
I was married, and I think, and he traveled a lot for his job, and I think that if I'd have had like a better home life, I would have been able to deal with it more better. But regardless, even if you had the best home life ever, it's a really difficult job. And I did it. I did well. I actually really liked my boss, but there's a lot of politics that goes on. I got coerced into playing softball. I'm not a softball kind of girl.
Just to be a part of the team.
Well, they needed girls. It was a co-ed league. Okay. Yeah. So I actually was the catcher. And I don't really know. Yeah. Because they were like,
stick you in right field, just hide you, you know?
Yeah.
I want to be there.
It was crazy. So golf was fun. Softball, not so much. But our firm, and they would not mind me telling this, it was one of the last firms in Nashville to have a bar in the firm. So at 5 o'clock, you were kind of expected to go to the bar. Well, I did not like beer at the time. You know, I'd like a mixed drink or something. Well, I had to learn how to like beer because you're just expected, and they'd think you were the freakiest of the freaks if you didn't drink. And I drank. Yeah. So I found some beers I liked, and but that's really unhealthy. I mean,
sure, every day
being pressured to drink and having to find like beer, and I got like puffy and like it just was not good. I mean,
so you're making good money, but you kind of feel like you're losing at everything else. Is that a fair assessment? Like health wise, you're making good money at corporate life, but kind of feel like maybe you're not authentic, not your true self, who you want to be, and then kind of do it, you know, kind of losing in health and some of these other aspects. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. The money was good, but there's also the sense of I had invested 3 years going to law school, And so there's like this sunk cost fallacy, like, and it's a little prestigious, like you get to go to court and wear cute stuff, and you're respected or loathed depending on how people think of lawyers. And so I mean, in a way it was good for my self-confidence. I learned how to deal with $1 billion deals and international things that a little girl from Kingsport would have no idea she would be dealing with. So it was good for me in a way, but yes, it was not my calling. It was not my authentic self. I hated it. I hated my daily life. I knew I would die early, probably, because just sitting and the stress, and I pride myself in doing a good job. So I would do whatever it took to do the darn good job. So I was there all the time. And I mean, that's not abnormal for working at a firm. That's the norm. Like you said, your friend did.
Yeah. So then when was the point, was there like a light bulb that came on, or, you talked about sunk cost fallacy. I see that a lot where people are, well, I'm already in this, I guess this is what I do. And a lot of people just get afraid, I think, to try and pivot and go a new direction. So where did this kind of light bulb come in, or thought that I wanted to go a new direction?
Well, I mean, the thought was there all the time. Like, I worked at Starbucks in college, and I was like, oh, if I could just go back to Starbucks, so I
You're this hotshot corporate lawyer doing $1 billion acquisitions, but in the back of your head, you're like, I'd rather be just like, chilling at Starbucks with my homies and serving some lattes and having a good life.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. Yeah. That was always in my thinking, but I never would have probably pulled the trigger on leaving had it not been for the death of my brother. He was a doctor and he died, and it was, he was 46, so it was unexpected. It was too young. And my dad had always thought that he would come join him at the practice. Well, it turns out, so, that was a terrible time, and I was reevaluating my life and reevaluating what was important. Well, to me, family is extremely important. And I didn't know that such a thing as nurse practitioners existed before about that time, but my brother had actually worked with one. And so I found out about nurse practitioners, like you can prescribe medication, you are pretty much doing primary care, you're just not a physician. So it was kind of a God thing in that Vanderbilt had a 2-year nurse practitioner bridge program. So I was able to get into that quickly because I had done pre-med in college, and I had an advanced degree, so I didn't have to take the test. I forget what the test is. And so I was able to just go. So dad thought it was an idea. We were going through my brother's things, and I was like, I hate law. And they knew I hated it. And at that point I was driving all over the state to court. I was kind of doing a little different side of law. And so I was driving early in the morning and I was exhausted, and it just wasn't worth it. And I never liked law. And so being able to go back to school, I got so excited about it. And I think that's one way you kind of know you're on the right track. I would be at night making spreadsheets of schools, and I was just so excited, So that is my personal way I ended up getting out of law. Nice. I wish it didn't take, a life horrible crisis, but
oftentimes it does. It's kind of a wake up call, and I mean, that's tragic, and I'm extremely sorry to hear that. Your brother passing got to be one of the hardest things you can deal with, especially so young. And if it's unexpected. It's one thing when a grandma passes, or a great grandma in their 90s, and it's almost the best thing sometimes. But yeah, that's gonna be a rough thing. But I feel like one of my favorite verses all time is in Genesis 50, where what the enemy will intend for harm, God will always use for good. And it sounds like even your law, you took good lessons out of it, and I think life gets really good. And I think that's why I admire you a lot. When when you say like, I look back at my time in corporate banking kind of the same way. I wasn't really called or designed to do that, but I learned a lot from it. I'm super grateful for that time I was there too. And it sounds like you had similar takeaways, but you kind of had this thing inside you that you knew it doesn't make me tick like this other thing, you know?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I'm really glad I did it. And like you said, the verse tells us it was worked out for the good.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then you go to Vanderbilt, you graduate this 2-year program, and then you start nurse practitioner, getting really into health and getting into this stuff. Is that kind of the journey? Can you kind of talk us through those years?
Yeah. So I absolutely loved it. I like school anyway, because I'm kind of nerdy. I like to learn.
That's a good trait to have. Be a lifelong learner.
Yeah, it keeps you young, I guess.
Exactly.
So I loved it, and I knew I had a job when I got out because I agreed to come work for my dad in Kingsport. So I missed my family. So my parents are kind of older. They had me when they were older. So I've been able to be with them and work for the family business. And I do love the whole nurse practitioner thing. And I keep my law license active just in case, it comes in handy every now and again for a family member or something. But yeah, so I got into health. It's just, I was trained kind of in Western medicine. So I know all the traditional things to do for people, like help your blood pressure and with pharmaceuticals. So that's one thing I've enjoyed about Twitter, is learning more about nutrition and herbs, natural stuff.
Yeah. So do you incorporate a lot of that with your clients? Because I do. That's one of my favorite things I see you talking on the timeline a lot about, is kind of that mind-body connection and overall like big picture of health, right? Not to put a Band-Aid on stuff, but let's fix it, So do you get to do that kind of in day-to-day life now?
Well, I'm working towards that, actually. So our clinic is an allergy clinic, but I am working on expanding it into more of a wellness clinic, because I do want to take what I've learned and what I'm continuing to learn, because I'm still not an expert on those things, as that's not what I was trained in. So I'm continually learning. I'm still in the learning process. So I am, though, taking the clinic in more of a wellness direction. And I am really excited about that, because we have employees, and I want to make sure the business stays with the times and isn't necessarily tethered to insurance payments. So, and I want people to feel better, and I want people to have, healthy lives and not feel like they need to lose weight. And, and people just don't know what to do. They really don't. I don't think it's always a motivation thing. I do think there's a lot of knowledge, lack of knowledge.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
The mind body thing, one thing I've observed is, in a lot of people that really need to lose weight, it's an identity problem. They see themselves as the chunky person, and that you kind of self-sabotage when you think that's your identity. You do things to keep yourself in that state. And and then there's emotional eating, and I have dealt with anxiety in my life, and so I've had to learn how to approach that myself. And so I do think eventually I can help that on this brick and mortar business, and then maybe eventually I can do more online. But I'm kind of focused on our little family business here.
You got a lot on your plate, for sure.
I do.
You do. I mean, that's a lot of irons in the fire. You can only do so much. But yeah, I kind of, I love how you kind of said that too, how it's, I don't know, it's never the thing is the cause is, there's a symptom. If somebody's overweight, and a lot of times it is like a self-love thing, or traumas from the past, or how they view themselves. And yeah, usually, I do a lot of health coaching and online coaching and stuff like that. And usually when we get to the root of things, I mean, we can be on, everybody knows you need to go move more and you need to eat real foods. Now, a lot of times there is a very big gap in knowledge where you don't have clients, well, I'm eating a salad every day. Well, bro, you're dumping a bottle of ranch on it. That's 2,000 calories, like
exactly. Yeah.
There's a lot of education piece that there's a big gap there, but I do think a lot of it is that identifying belief. And, for a really long time in my life, I just told myself, I have anxiety. I'm on meds for it. I'm not a good sleeper. And I always struggle with sleep. I have too much going on in my mind. I'm pretty ADD, as I got a lot of energy, but can't get it. And I just told myself that, and I kind of allowed the enemy to tell me who I was for a really long time. And it wasn't until, a few years ago on one night on my knees where I just shouted back at the enemy and said, you know who I really am? I'm a child of God, and you don't get to tell me who I am anymore,
That's awesome.
It's a daily battle for me to, there's still days I wake up and I feel the anxiety up to here. And that's the enemy kind of coming at me. But I think when you figure out, hey, the Spirit lives in me, and greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world, that's a lot of power around that. And so, I've started shouting back a lot more.
Awesome. Yeah. And you had a tweet a couple weeks ago that helped me, because I was kind of feeling rough that day, and you were like, take authority, pray. And I did. And I felt better,
Yeah. We always do after.
Yeah. But I was kind of wondering, because you have talked about how, your marriage was kind of suffering and your health was kind of suffering. And so I kind of wondered how you flipped that. Like what was the propulsion that made you into this, Ty?
Yeah, really, to be honest, it was one big night. My daughter was about 18 months old, and it was a Sunday. And I was like you, I was focused. I can't do like a half job. So I was managing a bank, and I had a staff of, 12 people or so. And I think I'd worked all 6 days that week, which was somewhat common then. My goal was to keep rising up corporate. That was my goal. And I remember it being a Sunday. I was laying on the couch all day. I ordered pizza. I ate an entire bag of barbecue chips. And my wife kept asking me a couple of times, Ty, like, it's nice out. Do you want to come out with me and Tinley to play? And I just kept, every time I would give her these answers. Do you know what I went through this week? I had to, I just complained. Oh, and that was kind of my life. I complained a lot. We didn't have a very good relationship because of me doing that. And I'll never forget my wife that night. We put our daughter to bed, and I was still laying on the couch then. And she said, Ty, you're not stuck. Tomorrow we're going to get up and we're going to have a better day. And I love you. And she just kind of walked into the bedroom, and something about it just rose up in me. Like, I'm not who I'm supposed to be right now. This is a very watered down version of Tyler. And I burst into tears. I cried truthfully about 2 hours that night. And I got on my knees and I said, God, I don't know really what to do next, but I know I'm not going to complain anymore. I'm going to wake up before my family and go to the gym again. I hadn't been to the gym in 18 months. I was getting, I gained 20 pounds without lifting a weight. So it wasn't muscle, and I just said, I know some of these things. I'm going to start listening to sermons again, and not just go to church and kind of take the family picture and pretend like everything's okay. But I'm going to start talking to God. I'm going to get really intentional with my life. And, again, like what you alluded to earlier, it wasn't like this journey like this. It's, but when you wake up every day and you kind of submit your life to God, and I pray a simple prayer every day. Hey, God, less of me, because when Tyler runs the show, it ain't pretty, more of you in me,
I hear you.
That's kind of my prayer every day, is just a little bit less of me. Tyler dies a little bit more every day, and Jesus kind of shines through me a little bit more every day. And that's the hope. And I fail all the time, but try and learn through it and grow through it is kind of my story.
That's fantastic. And I even tell my patients, my allergy patients, I'm like, progress, you will get there. I'm like, but it's not linear.
That's right.
There's going to be dips and valleys. And I feel like knowing that, because I try to tell them, not to be discouraged when they have a flare up. And knowing that helps, because then they're like, oh no, I'm not, regressing. I'm not sick. It will get better eventually. Yeah. So that's a lot of life.
Yeah, I think that's powerful to know too, even in a weight loss journey, right? Like I had a client lose 52 pounds in like 6 or 7 months, but he had weeks where he weighed in and he actually gained a pound, and he would freak out the first, he lost 20 really quick. And then, oh man, I put 2 back on, what's going on? And I'm like, you got to have a long-term vision with this stuff,
Yeah. And it makes me sad when people just look at the scale.
Right.
And then they get so discouraged about that 1 pound. Right. And I think I've been there before. I get it. Before I really understood, it's a long-term game. It's a process. It's not, and weight's one component, because muscle weighs more than fat. And do you fit in your pants? That's
Yeah, right.
once I
You have
learned
energy,
that,
you
it
know?
was,
Do you feel
but a lot of people just aren't at that point yet. But it's not just about the weight. And
Yeah.
1 pound of weight gain is okay.
That's right. Yeah.
It's a long-term game. It's a
Absolutely.
marathon, not a sprint.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, can you kind of maybe talk to anybody out there to be listening that maybe they're in a corporate job or they feel stuck, or, hey, I went to school and I invested 100 grand or all this money and all this time, and this is just what I'm doing, but I don't feel passionate about it. What advice would you give to somebody that's in that spot?
Well, life is short and we only have one life, and it may be shorter than you think it's going to be. I hope not. But even if you live 100 years, that goes by in an instant. Every day matters. If you are not happy doing what you're doing that day, you're not stuck, as your wife told you. You can make a change. We get in ruts and we think that we have to just do what we are doing because that's what we've always done and it's secure. So, but you can change your life. You can change jobs, you can change careers. When I got out of law, most of my colleagues were so supportive, surprisingly, and they were like, oh, I wish I could do that. Now they had a family, they were worried about income, that kind of thing. So I would say start saving money and reducing costs a little bit so you have a little cushion, because you don't want to just quit. And I would also say you want to have a goal. You want to be moving towards something and not just away from what you're hating. Figure out what your next goal is, because you can even be working on that while you're at your job that you don't like. So you can use the job you don't like to work on, to have the financial resources to work on what you want to do. But my main thing is life is short. So keep doing what you're not happy doing and what is not your purpose.
And that's super powerful right there. And I think so many people do just feel stuck. And I remember what you said is so true. Like when me and my wife, a few months after that, I remember when I was getting started on this self-improvement, I'd started a gratitude journal. I'd started getting up and working out and feeling better again. And then I came home one night and I told my wife, I no longer want to be running branches and trying to run 20 branches and then 100 I don't want this path for my life. I don't feel like that's what I want. And she said, well, let's get a plan. Let's start to look at how we can get you out, and we literally sat down and wrote down, here's where we would need to be financially. Here's what it would need to look like for our family. And then it became exciting to me every day, as you kind of alluded to. I kind of had this saying, like a ship in the harbor is safe. That's not what ships are made for. And, a Tyler in the bank is safe, but that's not what Tyler was made for. And so I would leverage every minute, on lunch break to jot down notes or up my skills in coaching or grow social media, whatever that would be, with that vision in my head of where I wanted to go. And, I think if you can give 40 or 50 hours a week to your boss or your company, you can find 2 or 3 a week to give to yourself to create those dreams for yourself too, and get where you want to go.
Yes. And, and part of that is knowing that you are worth it and your family will be happier if you're happy. And your life and what you want is valuable. It's okay to want something else. It's okay to want more. You're not stuck. It may feel that way, but you can make changes,
I love that. That's really good advice. All right. One thing I got to talk about too, because I always glance up and I'm like, holy cow, it's been this long. I got to talk about your dog. Okay. I found your dog on Instagram.
He's awesome.
Your dog is, we gotta link a picture here. So, we'll link a picture at the top or something. This is the cutest dog. And I was just looking at this dog. I had to show it to my daughter. I'm like, look at this dog. So how long have you had the dog? And tell us a little bit about like your day-to-day life now, I guess. And then kind of, throw the dog in there.
Okay. Well, as I was telling you today, so my hair's a little crazy because it's so humid today. When I went to feed my chickens, my glasses fogged up. It's really humid and I have chickens. I freaked out in 2020 and I was like, I have to have a food supply. But the chickens have been fun.
How many chickens do you have? How many chickens?
9. I only had 3 as of last fall because I have a backyard hawk.
Oh, wow. Holy
Yeah,
cow.
so I finally had to put netting over their little run. But I have 9 now.
Okay.
And I have a little run and a little coop, and
So awesome.
they're great. And so I love animals. I have always loved animals. So I did find this breed of dog called Japanese Chins, and they are the best. And yes, they're a small dog. I know some people hate small dogs, but they're known as the most cat-like of dogs, and they were royalty in Japan. So they weren't known to the Western world until somebody took one to Queen Alexandria. So they're little fancy, spoiled, smush-faced dogs. So they bring me a lot of joy. But so my daily life, I take care of my chickens. I date my fella. I have I take care of my parents. They are very needy.
It's nice that you live.
But I love them, and it's so worth it. And they would laugh at me saying that. I can say that. And but they've taken care of me, my emotions, and they've always been there for me.
Yeah.
So and lately, like I said, I've been trying to learn and expand the business. So I signed up to do a bridal show, and I'm just doing I'm trying to learn more about marketing. I knew nothing about that. They don't teach you that in law school or nursing school. Just, you're on your own. I don't know. I didn't know anything about marketing. And that's another reason I sought out our Twitter group, our world there.
Yeah, a little community. I love our Twitter community.
Yeah. I didn't know what a lead was. I didn't know what a conversion rate was. I didn't know
either. I still don't know stuff anymore, to be honest. I just go in there and have fun every day and just share.
Well, I had hired some people, and they were talking this language that I had no idea what they were talking about. So I've learned, I'm trying to learn that stuff because my dad started the allergy clinic 29 years ago. So we're still in paper and pen, and like even this doing Zoom, like I didn't want to get to where I couldn't function, like other people on the computer. And anyway, I digress. So I've been trying to learn about marketing and internet marketing, and I've been taking a lot of classes and learning more about the wellness. And so I do a lot of learning right now and trying to implement.
That's very cool though. And that kind of makes you feel alive too. I always think like, when you're learning a new skill set, or, you have these big incremental leaps, and like, I know zero about marketing, but after day 1 of studying, I learned 15 new things, like that feels good. It's good to challenge your mind and to keep growing. Right. And the fact that you just have your own chickens, you're in Tennessee, right? I mean, I just find that so cool. So you guys, how many eggs does a chicken produce every week?
It varies by breed. My chicken, so I have found the happier they are, like they're a little stressed out right now where it's hot. But so they'll pop out about an egg a day.
Wow. 9 farm like eggs, perfectly organic eggs every day.
Yes, and it feels like the greatest miracle and treasure. I still feel amazed every time I go and there's eggs. Like these chickens, they just created this egg, and get this, they're different colors. Like they lay blue eggs.
Get out of here.
No, they lay
wild
eggs.
To me. Man.
It is so, you should get some.
I would love that, to be honest.
If
that
you're
would be
zoning,
although it's 115 degrees right now in Vegas, so I don't know if chickens could live
but the humidity's okay. It's like dry there, right?
Yeah, it's dry. There's no
hardly just gotta make sure they have enough water and maybe some shade.
I would love that. My wife's gonna be so stoked when I tell her we're getting chickens.
Your daughter would like I think your wife would.
She would, to be honest, she'd be cool with it. She wants to get a little pig, to be honest. She wants a mini pig to like live in.
Okay, a mini pig is a way harder core farm animal. So they're fun. They have all these behaviors I never knew. They sunbathe, they dirt bathe, but it's worth it for the eggs, even if they weren't fun and cool. The eggs are awesome.
Yeah, so you just get to eat these all the time. And what a healthy way. I mean, that's just
Yes. And it still feels like a miracle every day that they just poop out eggs, which I know is the wrong word, but
we know what you mean. We got it. That's
yeah,
awesome. Nisha, I so appreciate you coming on. I'm going to link everything Nisha does below. And Nita, by the way, we didn't get really into it, but you have a book out too. Can you maybe give a minute about your book?
Oh, I got into KDP. That was part of my learning about, trying not to get left behind while the world goes into creation and marketing and internet stuff. So I've got a Christian coloring book under Agape Publications. I decided to make that different. I've got some other books under Athena Publications on Amazon.
All right, we'll link that below too, and then we'll obviously link your Twitter. It's at Athena. Is it? What
No, I should probably change that. It's in Nalina S, because Nalina is my middle name.
Okay.
And so it's in Nalina. But if you just type in Athena, I'll pop up.
You do, yeah. That's how you pop up for me. Okay, gotcha. Well, we'll put everything that you do below, and that's cool. Christian color. My boys will be coloring here soon, so I will definitely pick up one of those. I appreciate.
I'll send you some books.
That's super cool. I like to support my friends, man. So I'll go on and order them for sure.
All right.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I end every podcast what I call rapid fire questions. So if you're up for it, I'm gonna give you 5 questions. Just fire back the first thing that comes to your mind. Is that cool?
Well, that's fun.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun little way to end. People get to know a little more about you. All right. What's your favorite book and character of the Bible?
Well, I love Ecclesiastes, but that is not really a character. That is more just, it's kind of a dark book.
It is, yeah.
So I love Ecclesiastes. My favorite character is David, because he was kind of a wild child and he did all kinds of bad stuff, but the Lord still loved him, and he loved the Lord. Yeah. So David's my favorite character. And then what was the other question?
Ecclesiastes is your favorite book?
Yes.
The Bible? Yeah. Meaningless. Everything's meaningless. I love Ecclesiastes.
There's nothing new under the. Well, I like Philippians too. It's happy. So
yeah. There's all kinds of good ones. All right. I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Don't feel obligated. If we need to edit this part out, we can. But you're so funny. I think you have very witty and timely things on the timeline. So can you give us a funny joke or a really good joke that you might know on the spot?
A joke?
Yeah, you're super funny. Everything you say, I find you funny.
Oh my gosh. No, all the jokes I know from back in the day are not clean.
Oh, that probably comes from the lawyer field, right?
Yeah,
I'm sure the lawyers at the bar.
And those are the only ones I remember.
All right, that's fair enough.
All right.
Yeah. That's fair enough. All right, what's the best part of every part of your day, of each part of your day? What's that one thing that you would look the most forward to, or kind of at the end of the day you say, man, that's usually like my favorite part of the day?
This is really shallow, but coffee in the mornings, quiet time.
Yeah.
Quiet, just that time to regroup. And I get up a little early, so I have a little time to drink the coffee and hang out, and before the craziness begins of the day.
Same. You start the day with intention, right? I think that's important, to not just be woke up and then have 100 people needing 100 things from you and you feel scatterbrained.
Exactly. And I do, on my good days, I'll read some scripture. So yeah.
Same.
Depends on what study I'm doing, because I've got an online group, but
nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I started leaving my Bible on my pillow. Like right now, if I look up, my Bible is on my pillow. And I just try and I do 1 chapter a night. So I'm like, okay, it's 3 minutes to read 1 chapter. But then over the course of a month, you get 30 chapters.
Oh, it adds up. Yeah.
Right?
Hey, that's really smart, because when you leave something, when you make it easy on yourself,
yeah, right,
then it's easier to do. Like if that's the first thing you see and can touch and reach, that's a great idea.
Yeah. And it's almost like I have to physically pick it up and put it down, and then I'm basically telling all right, God, not tonight. I'd rather watch this YouTube video, so not tonight. I don't know, it's a good little mental thing for me. What's your favorite book or author that non-Christian, or it can be Christian but just non-Bible, I guess?
Oh, here's where the nerdiness comes in. I did my English honors thesis in college on Shakespeare.
Oh wow.
So I do really love Shakespeare, because he's all about human nature, and so everything he wrote about then is applicable now. I had a Twitter friend recommended a really good novel that's modern though. It was called The Great Alone. And I just read that. That's like the last thing I read. And it's set in Alaska. So it's really cool. So those are my favorites.
I like that. Very cool. Awesome. All right. Well, where can people find you? What's your future plans? You've kind of gotten into that a little bit, I guess, already, but maybe future plans or goals, or what are you currently working on, I guess, outside of expanding the business and learning and doing all these things? Like a year from now, where are you hoping to be?
Well, I have started a book on addiction because I have a lot of that runs in my family, and I've got some experience with that. So I've started a book on that. That'll be coming up. I will be on YouTube for health related things.
Love that.
And you can find me on Twitter under Athena. And that is my most authentic place where I am on there the most often.
Yeah, Twitter's awesome because it's just a brain dump. It's like whatever you're thinking and feeling, you can just kind of like put it out there, you know? And like I think it's really neat that we can all share like that and then find like-minded people, you know? It's really neat.
Yes. And the last few years, it's been extra awesome to be able to, you know, connect with people. And you don't necessarily have those geographical connections because all my friends are all around the country. So like my in real life friends. So Twitter's been awesome.
Yeah, it's if you curate a positive timeline and you're like intentional about who you follow, I mean, it can be a really awesome community where I learn so much every day on there, and I love sharing. I mean, you get the biggest experts in the world. Cynthia Thurlow comes on, and she's literally studied 30 years about intermittent fasting and health, and like talks to 12 million people have viewed it, and she's just telling you anything you want, and she'll respond to you and answer personal questions. It's like the most amazing community, you know. It's really neat.
It is.
That's awesome. Well, Nisha, I appreciate you coming on so much. You're a person I've always just admired. Every interaction we've ever had is probably 10,000 for 10,000. You always leave me feeling better too. And so,
you do.
Kind of person, you know? So I appreciate you.
It's mutual. Thank you, Ty.
Well, thank you so much. We'll let you get back to go and getting back to your job. But I just want to say, everybody, this is Tyrompers No Limit Podcast, episode number 43. We got Nisha on here. We appreciate her coming on. We'll have all the things she does below, so link and support and check her out. Guys, just go out today. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Bless up. Let's go change the world with one random act of kindness at a time. You guys go have the greatest day of your lives. Thanks for tuning in.